Hello, everyone, and welcome to PyData Global. We're excited to have you join us. I invite everyone to use the chat to connect with fellow attendees and share your thoughts during the session, as well as if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A tab, and we should have time at the end to address them. But now it's my pleasure to introduce Maarten Breddels. He will be presenting his talk, Python Apps in the Browser Made Simple by PyCafe. Maarten is the creator of PyCafe, so this is great, and we are really appreciative to have him here. So let's give a warm welcome to Maarten.
Thank you, Jim. So let me start my deck. So I'm going to talk about Python apps in the browser made simple by PyCafe, and kind of the thought-provoking subtitle is: What if deploying a Python app was as simple as a single click and came at zero cost? So a little bit about who we are. I'm Maarten Breddels. You may know me of some Jupyter work, especially IPy widgets. Based on that, created Solara, and in the past, you may know me of Facts and IPy volume. I own a company, Widgety, together with Mario and Isaki. You may also know him. Also works with us. But this is a company we set up together with Jack Palmer. Together started PyCafe, but a lot of the work is done by Widgety. So I'm gonna talk about what exactly PyCafe is, and actually for who did we build PyCafe, and I'm gonna explain a few use cases for that. And today I'm gonna focus on mostly on open source developers and its users, integration with GitHub, documentation. I'll talk a little bit about the enterprise model we have, our self-hosted solution. I'll end with some conclusions. So, what is PyCafe? So, it's a platform to create and share Streamlit, Dash, and other Python apps online. So, if you go to PyCafe, you will see these styles for each framework, um, and you click, for instance, on the Streamlit tile, and what you see on your screen is a file browser where you can add new files, drag in files. You see an editor. Um, that you can use to edit the file. You see terminal for print statements and other output, and you see a preview browser. And there's no server running with this. So this runs fully in the browser. The editor, everything, the Streamlit server in this case, running fully on the browser. It's using WASM or WebAssembly. More specifically, we're building this on top of the Pyodide project. So huge shout out to that team. And not sure why my phone wants to connect. So this platform allows you to edit using the editor. You see the preview on the right, so it's kind of like an embedded browser. And if you click the screen or the button here to copy this URL or go to the share screen for some more options, I can give this URL to all of you, and you will see this screen. So you see the application full screen. And because this is running in your browser, so not in our server, this scales infinitely. And that also means there's like really no server, basically no cost. And we currently support 6 stream frameworks: Streamlit, Shiny, Visro, Solara, Plotly, and Panel. But we hope to soon also support Gradio, and we always ask people to vote. So if you go to PyCafe, you can vote what you want to have next. Now you can choose between Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Classic Notebook, so an interesting choice, and another project, Jupyter Cell. But because there's basically no cost and there's no server, you can create like infinite amount of apps. So I created actually 277 actually when I made these slides. If you go to my profile page, you will see that I created a few more. So for all these styles here are projects that I created, and I'll go a little bit in more depth in that. What's also interesting, especially in the age of AI LLMs, is that because everything's running in a browser, it's a safe sandbox environment. It's actually quite safe to execute code of that an LLM produced. It's not able to delete your files. it only lives in the browser. And I think with that I can end, because I told you what it is. It's just Python in the browser, and it's actually quite simple. But actually, maybe it's not the end, because although the principle is quite simple, it's what you can do with it um, um, requires some thinking. And I want to give you some use cases that we have found and that other people have found or discovered, and to spark some ideas, and maybe you have some ideas for us as well of what we can do with it. Let me first start with what snippets and projects are. So if you create, in this case, a streamlit snippet, you will see that there's a very long URL in here. And as you can see, this URL encodes all the data. So the application, you can see the import streamlit is encoded in the URL. So it's basically a URL encoded. Usually this is compressed, but you can there's an option to see it uncompressed. That does mean that these snippets are limited in size, on only 100 kilobytes. Also, I'll show you you saw the screenshots in like on my profile page. Those are not possible with snippets, because they're basically too large. What's really convenient, and I'll show some of that, is you can generate these URLs from scripts. Like you can generate these in Python quite easily based on code, and integrate them in CI. This is documented on a website if you want to do something like that. Also, no login required, no data on our servers. You can use this like now, go to PyCafe, click on Streamlit, and you should see a window like this. But there's more. We also have support for what we call projects. That does require a login. We use GitHub. So if you have a GitHub account, you just click for like allow, and then we can identify you, or you log in with your email. This allows us to generate nice URLs, similar to like GitHub, username, and then project name. These projects can be forked. They are stored in our database. That also means that we can allow for slightly larger projects. So these are 100 times larger than the snippets, 10 megabytes. And we support storing screenshots. So you can make a screenshot and store this in with the project. And then if you put a URL on Twitter, in this case, I used Slack, it produces a nice social card. And all of these projects, in this case, shown here, Christian Wu's profile page, will be shown on your profile page, or with the screenshot, so you have some idea what the application is about before you click on it. Those who have seen a talk of me know this slide. So I usually do a live demo. So let's see. So I have PyCafe open here. I'm gonna do exactly the same thing. I'm gonna click on Streamlit. I'm gonna modify this example a little bit. Let's say right there. Here you see Streamlit. If you're familiar with it, you can choose always rerun, and you see it's rerunning it. Okay, and you see the output of this print statement in the terminal. Now, if we hit this button, we turn this into a project. So now you can see this is a compressed URL. I can give this URL to someone else, and this person will see the same. Or I'm logged in with my GitHub profile. And now I push this project, and we're using AI to generate like a nice project name and a description. So in this case, this is okay. What you can also do is make a screenshot. I'm using the OSX built-in screenshot feature. So I'll go here and I paste the image I have on my clipboard. I click save. I could also change requirements. So add libraries here. I'm not going to do this now. And this application should now be visible on my project profile page, as you can see here. And now if this URL I can share with other people. And if you go to my profile page, you should see it on top. So for who did we create this? Well, today I'm going to talk mostly about open source developers and users. So I'll talk about these topics, the GitHubs and Docs integration, examples, uh, galleries or sandbox or playground environments. But you can also think about like teachers, like there's zero setup. You can focus on code, not about like environments, although many tools have made this much easier nowadays. Um, Everybody nowadays is an influencer, or if you're a regular blogger and you want to have like code examples and embed them in your website, it's really nice to be able to share them and to also manage the screenshots there. Startups, like they don't want to do DevOps, they want to have a really simple way to share an application. Data scientists, same idea. Um, and we got some interest for companies having their own PyCafe server, so they have their own knowledge base of like small snippets, applications that they can share over larger applications, kind of like the throwaway applications that you build, like an interactive dashboard or report. So I'm going to focus mostly on this. And for the open source developers and users, I'm going to talk about communication, documentation, and what we call playgrounds for PRs or pull requests. Communication. So a while ago, we got this question: does Solara, so that's the one of the web frameworks we support and that we built, and we got a question: does Solara provide access to local storage? And what I did is I actually tried this out on PyCafe. I created multiple files. In this case, I created a Python file, a Vue file to be able to implement this, test this out. Every time I like refresh my page, I know that the whole environment is like starting from scratch. And I use this to include in my answer and got a nice thank you. Okay, this really helps me, like learns me a lot. Um, so what happened in this way? So there's a different way of communication. So instead of putting a code snippet on GitHub that someone needs to be able to reproduce multiple files, so you need to create them. I created an example that fully answers the question and it's fully reproducible. And it's also like not anymore the case like, hey, it works on my machine because I installed particular libraries. So that's really nice. And I started from a clean environment in a single click. So it's really easy to get started with this. And this answer is a live example that is editable, and people can hack around, fiddle with it to see how they can break it and learn from that. But what we also notice is really nice is the other way around. So people on Discord, for instance, someone had this question. I've not been able to figure out how to get IPy AG Grid to switch between light and dark mode without a screen refresh. Attached is an example. So I click on this link and I have a fully reproducible example. I don't need to do anything. It's fully reproducible. I just click on the button and I see indeed it doesn't toggle the dark mode. I then fiddle around on this example. I could have made a fork and then maybe shared a spec, but I basically just gave a code example answering his question. Again, what happened here? So a user produced a fully reproducible example. I do not have to set up anything, just a single click, and I have the environment and example that for this person is not working. So that's super low friction for me, super easy for me to start answering the question. I can also really easily confirm it and hack in this environment to try to solve the issue. And in the future, people can also play with this example, not having to set up the full Python environment. And as a side effect of that, I created like many projects on PyCafe, and a lot of these are like basically examples for people. So if you Google them, you should be able to find them. But they're linked everywhere from our GitHub to Discord, and many other people have used this as well. Like the Fishrow project is using it to to have a gallery of their most common examples. Panel is doing the same, and also other people like Anne-Marie, who's really active in the Plotly community and maintainer of Desmantine. There's a lot of examples, very active on the Plotly forum, posting examples there. And kind of the next thing I want to talk about now is documentation. So what we noticed is that a lot of time you put like code in Markdown. For instance, if you use mkdocs, that's very common. Probably familiar with 3 backticks, Python, some Python code, and it renders on your documentation site like nicely formatted. If you do a pip install mkdocs PyCafe, shown here, and you can watch the documentation on this website, you can add these attributes, PyCafe link, and you can also add extra requirements so that there's, in this case, this Vega datasets library. And what then happens is you get this extra line, this link underneath your code in your documentation, that if you click it, gets you a Python environment in PyCafe with this code and all the requirements in there. Furthermore, if you, instead of do PyCafe link, you do PyCafe embed, instead of having a link underneath it, you have a fully embedded application. In this case, the output of this chart, this altered chart. And still, if you want to edit this, you can go to this link and then edit it online. So who's using this? We're using this for Solara. So here you have in Solara, you have an example. Then we have the output. So this is actually running on a server, a regular server, but we don't want people to change this code and then execute code on our server. That's not safe. So instead, we also have this link that if you want to play with this, you just click this link and can edit it. The Visro team also using this, same ID, using the mkdocs plugin. And we saw one of the panel projects also using this, embedding it and having these run buttons on a single page. There's also a much simpler way of doing this. You can embed it in your readme.md. So in this case, we have streamlit volume, a streamlit library that now has in the readme.md this link, run and edit this example in PyCafe. And if you click it, you basically get this example and you can edit it and play with it. And we see that it's really popular. Like people click this a lot. So it's a really low friction way for open source projects to engage people in trying out their library. And last thing is playgrounds for PRs. So we maintain also this library called IPyReact. Details are not so important, but we got this PR by Paddy, and yeah, I know it's 2 weeks ago. I should look at it very soon. But although you have CI set up, sometimes it's really useful to be able to see like, hey, what does this look like? And can I play around with this PR? And what we've done is in our CI, we have a way to generate these snippet links to a playground for each PR. So in our PR, for every PR, we have this link. If we click on details, it opens PyCafe with this particular version of this PR installed in it. And again, no server, so there's no cost at all, no maintenance. You can have 100 PRs, you can have 1,000, 10,000 PRs, it doesn't matter. No server is running, so this scales to basically every Python library on GitHub. If you want to try this out, it is a bit of work to set this up. Hopefully we can make this simpler in the future, but it's fully documented in these links. I want to elaborate a little bit about the enterprise self-hosted solution. So you may wonder, like, what's your business model? Are you doing this as a hobby? Well, not fully. The public PyCafe server is not an open source project, but we fully support open source. We do a lot of open source ourselves, for instance, Solara, and we kind of like self-support us. So it's really helping Solara to have a lot of examples online. And for this, you only need a free plan. Like it's free and it's open for open source public projects. You can have unlimited projects as long as they're like open and limited to this 10 megabytes. In the future, we may have a pro plan, or we at least we plan to have private apps, but those don't make sense for open source projects. You actually want all your apps to be public, and also support larger file sizes because there's some cost associated to that. And we also hope to see a lot of adoption in enterprise using our self-hosted solution. So in that case, you have like your private server, and you can find details on this page. And then you can actually install like your own server. So it's an on-prem self-hosted server with a Python or JavaScript version. People kind of like having a Python version because you can just pip install it, and like using UV-corn. It's people are familiar with that. You may question like, why do people want this? So it's mostly for security or privacy reasons. Why would you trust PyCafe with your data or your client's data? Also, some apps might not be suitable for distribution, not exactly private, but doesn't make sense to go out in public. And there's also a need to have this internal like knowledge sharing platform to share code snippets and projects. But I think a lot of this can also be covered by the pro plan. I want to get a little bit back to how we store the data. So in the beginning, I talked about snippets. So that's what you see on the left. And in the cloud, we have a PyCafe server running, existing of a database and a web server. And if you go to PyCafe, all the HTML, JavaScript, CSS, everything gets fetched from the web server. But the data that you put in, like your app and your data and your CSV file, those are all encoded in the URL. So that means that the data is in the URL and not stored in our database. Projects, on the other hand, HTML, JavaScript is exactly the same, but the data is stored in our database. And this may be a problem for some companies. So even though you can have your own private server, so you have PyCafe at acme.com, whatever your company name is, you have your private server running like securely in your VPN. Same situation, except you own the database, so you don't have to trust that we look at your data. That may still not be enough, because some, and I'll get back to that, but even storing like data in a database that the company owns in larger company is not that simple. So what we've done instead for this solution is similar to snippets. Only the JavaScript and HTML gets fetched from the web server, but all the data can be exported to a self-contained HTML file. And this HTML file contains like fully the app. You may be thinking, at least that's what I was thinking, like, why files? Like why would you do this? Why not store it in a database? But I learned that like secure file storage is really like a solved problem in many companies. So storing stuff in files and managing those files is a solved problem. It's very clear where the data is, instead of a database, like who maintains this, who can read this, etc. And these self-contained HTML files can be shared via email. And just want to show you what it looks like. So here we have this HTML file. It's not a big app. It says 6 kilobytes. We can double click this, and then it starts PyCafe. So it still gets the HTML and JavaScript from the server. But now we have a fully working interactive Python app in your browser. Isn't it amazing? Maybe you want to know more information. So actually, last week there was this really good video about how to build and share Streamlit apps without installing Python. was a really interesting YouTube video on generating plotly graphs with AI and text prompts using the Visro framework. What's interesting is it's using an LLM to generate code and execute that in PyCafe, which is of course really safe because it's a sandboxed environment. I did not fully go into depth how PyCafe works, so this document may be useful for you. Dealing with secrets is a very difficult problem because everything runs in the browser. How do you deal with secrets? We wrote something about that in these documents. And maybe you want to see how you can do the self-hosted hosted solution. Let me conclude. So PyCafe is a platform to create and share Streamlit Dash and Python apps online. There are many use cases. I discussed mostly about the communication on like Discord and GitHub, how to embed this in documentation, and how to create like playgrounds for each PR in GitHub without having too much server costs. And because it scales, it really scales infinitely using this solution. Huge shout out to the Pyodide team for making this possible. We're really building upon what they've done. Please try it out. Go to py.cafe and try it out. And if you have feedback, go to Discord and let us know. And the enterprise plan is also possible if you have a need for a private server. And yeah, that's it. I hope there are some questions.
Great. Yes. Yes. Let's invite anyone from the audience who might have a question to post it in the Q&A tab. We have about 2 minutes so we can answer a question or two.
Thank you for the applause.
Or we could just do a standing ovation for the final 2 minutes. That's fine. Yep. Let's keep it going.
Thank you. No question. Yeah, I think I probably could have stopped here.
All right. Well, thank you, Maarten. We really appreciate that. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. And I think we could wrap it up here. So
Yeah.
yes, we'll see you at the next session. Or if you would like, you can continue conversations on Discord. The link is in the reception. But otherwise, we will see you out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.